Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 3 in Toronto begins later on today, but meanwhile, Paris Legion have confirmed that they are indeed going to move to Las Vegas for next season. Plenty of implications to be had on that front, but iLLeY is with the OpTic guys over there in Toronto, unfortunately not able to play this weekend at his home event, but he certainly does indicate that his thumb is feeling significantly better. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Thank you also to PrizePicks for supporting today's content. If you guys are from the US and Canada, look no further for your daily fantasy needs than right here. Will Dashie get more than 57.5 kills in the first 3 maps against the Florida Mutineers? Seems relatively plausible given that they might well play, well, Bacage game 1 because Mutineers rather like that map. And I can of course pair this up with any other sport and esports. So maybe I'm looking at soccer and I'm wondering if Allison's going to get more than 1.5 saves up against South Korea. Let's say yes, I can place the entry. PrizePicks will match any deposit you guys make on the site if you use the link in the description box below up to $100. Let's crack on with the content, baby, because, well, yesterday, all the pros started to come out and talk about Modern Warfare 2. Of course, they play tested this game, a few of them did, apparently more than I expected them to actually, like, well, a couple of weeks ago now, and they were allowed yesterday to talk about it. Now, I kind of, like, I don't know if the pros actually write these, or, because why do they always sound exactly the same? Like, surely one of them could write some sort of comment about Modern Warfare 2 that doesn't just sound like it's been written by the developers themselves, if you know what I'm saying. So Envoy says, earlier this season, I got the chance to play Modern Warfare 2 with other CDL pros, had an absolute blast playing, which I swear is just, they always say this, giving feedback with a dev team, one of the earliest playtests ever run. Super grateful for the opportunity, hope to help more in the future. So, like, look, it's cool stuff. They're actually playing the game early. Daniel Sai mentioned actually in the community update yesterday that they're kind of going to do more playtests as well, with the idea being that not just, you know, usually the pros play the game, they say, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and then the game releases like 2 weeks later, and they're like, okay, we're not going to do anything about it. This time the plan is they're going to do at least a couple or maybe 2 or 3 playtests throughout the next, you know, couple of months, to which point the developers can actually theoretically change the game and you know, kind of take on board their feedback. But of course, really what we want to know, what a lot of fans want to know is the game actually any good? Like, do the pros actually like it? And there's a attached this here, got the chance to play Modern Warfare 2 early, think it'll be the best Call of Duty of all time, like he tends to say. Now, you know, Jake Lucky, I think it's a fair point here, and it's like, okay, are these pros actually, are they allowed to say what they want to say, or do they just have to say that it's going to be good? Can they get fined if they're critical about the game that's upcoming? Attached reckons that he was actually being perfectly reasonable, but this is an amalgamation of a few of the tweets that were coming out, and they're all exactly the same, really. Like, Simp says, I had the chance to test Modern Warfare 2, talk to some of the devs, excited for next year, as Paul X says as well, we're in for a good year. Like, honestly, how many times have we seen this? So, like, I'm not really reading into this at all. Like, look, the pros aren't going to say it's terrible, and obviously Doug Sins Martin said very recently that he'd heard from his sources that the game was bad. So I feel like this isn't really worth reading into, but it is good to see in general that loads of different pros got to play the game early, and they should be able to give feedback that could be dealt with or could be handled over, you know, before the next playtest to come around. So I think in general it's a positive, but like I wouldn't be reading these and thinking, okay, wow, this game's going to be fantastic, because like they'll wait until last minute to reveal that actually things aren't as good as they might seem. As Zero says in reply to Jake here, actually, people think we got told or paid what to say is comical. It was fun to play. So he reckons it's fun. Like, no one's getting told what to play or what to say, but you know, I just, you know, it's always so formulaic. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys agree with me on that one. And of course, again, Doug said not too long ago now that he'd heard from his sources that the game was terrible. Now, you know, whether those sources were pros that we kind of theorized at the time, that might be the case, but maybe some of them actually like it. So Zero said it was fun to play. Whether it's a good competitive game, that's another thing entirely. And it's just as I was kind of mentioning here from Daniel Sai and the CDL, they had a few comments on this. There's so much to talk about today. We're not going to get into exactly what was mentioned here in the community update, but he did talk about the possibility of, you know, more playtests upcoming, where theoretically some professional player feedback could actually be absorbed by the league. So we'll see how that one goes, I suppose. Now, well, we've got to dive into this as well. So yesterday we looked at the possibility that seems kind of, well, almost unlikely in a way, that Paris Legion are going to try and effectively move to Vegas. Now, we heard, this is kind of the comment from Hex a while ago, we looked at this several months ago at this point, but effectively he said that when he was trying to join the CDL initially, he wanted to try and take the Las Vegas spot. They told him it wasn't up for grabs. Las Vegas CDL, like, you know, it's not going to happen, and we theorized at the time, it was probably last off-season, that like Cloud9 wanted that spot, or there was some other kind of investment group that had said, okay, we're going to come into the CDL, give us a couple of years, we're going to take the Vegas spot, right? And the CDL was kind of keeping it on reserve for, you know, for another organization to come through. Turns out that despite Hex wanting this spot, not being able to get it, of course, for the last couple of years, it's now gone to Paris. Now, of course, there's many ways to look into this. Paris officially confirmed it yesterday. The rumors are true. We're excited to announce a new chapter for Legion fans. I didn't know there were any Legion fans, but, you know, fair enough. In 2023, the Legion will be relocating to Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Legion, baby. For now, we're looking forward to crushing it at Major 3 this weekend. So, you know, crashing out in the first round, I think, is what they meant to say in that one. But, you know, look, Las Vegas Legion, apparently that's going to be a thing. The reason is, like, okay, what exactly is going on here? Why are they doing doing this? Why does the ownership group want to relocate? It almost does make you think, like, what's the value of these franchises where they could just move cities for seemingly no good reason, if you know what I'm saying? I mean, there is a good reason, because Paris haven't made any attempt to kind of interact with the French community at all. And as I said yesterday, will this organization get replaced by heretics coming into Madrid or something? Like, will there actually be a couple of European teams still? Because Toronto right now, not even a European team, and London are kind of carrying the European scene on their backs at the present time. So I wonder if the CDL are thinking, well, Toronto's kind of a European team anyway, we don't need 2 European franchises. But I thought this is interesting actually from Crone kind of discussing why, because of course the CDL has to approve this, right? And say, okay, like, this is fine, go ahead with it. The CDL know full well that Paris aren't the greatest ownership group in the world, right? They don't really make much attempt to actually try and develop players, or they just eventually every single year wait until the scraps of the league are kind of still on challenger sides and then pick them up for the minimum salary, making really no attempt to even try and win. They're 2-16 map count this season. Like, I'm sure the CDL would much prefer another ownership group to come through and take over this spot. So maybe, as Cronus kind of pointed out, I thought was an interesting idea, that the CDL like, yes, please relocate to Las Vegas, we would be happy to. So then they can, well, Las Vegas spot is, I suppose, much easier to sell than a Paris spot to a potential new ownership group. So then it's more attractive for, well, Paris to sell it, and also for the league to sell it. So maybe next season someone comes through and says, okay, yeah, we're going to buy out the Legion. It's not going to be the Las Vegas Legion, it's going to be the Las Vegas Clouds. I don't know, this sounds terrible, but Cloud9 could come through, or another organization could come through and make something happen, right? So we'll see on that front, but I thought this is a plausible situation where they go to Las Vegas, but then the current ownership group that owns Paris isn't actually there next year, and it goes to someone else, and they probably rebrand the Legion entirely, to be perfectly honest. Maybe they keep it though. Let's dive into the situation at the Major. So this I thought was hilarious actually from Scup. So last time out in Minnesota, compared to the OpTic Major back in Major 1, the big talking point of the OpTic Major was that every team had their own room, really, so they could practice in, prepare and stuff, and in Minnesota, they didn't really have all that much space to do that. So they had all the 12 teams in, I believe, 3 different rooms, where they were separated by curtains for their kind of practice stuff. Now, of course, this wasn't ideal for the pros, because it meant that they couldn't really say what they wanted to say, because they knew that their opponents might be on the other side of the kind of curtain, so they could hear their strats, and it's difficult to prepare for matches when you don't have your kind of own personal space to prepare in. Now, of course, it's pretty difficult to find all the room for 12 CDL teams at a venue like this, and therefore this one that they're doing in Toronto is actually done inside the locker rooms. Scum kind of, it was a little bit passive-aggressive, this video, and I thought it was kind of, yeah, funny in a way, really, just compared to what, of course, they were doing back at the OpTic venue, but I thought really it was kind of good, right, in a way. They've got their own room. Yes, it's inside a locker room here, where you've got the showers on tap, you've got the benches if you need it, but there's enough space in these locker rooms to set up the PCs, to discuss your own stuff, to connect to, kind of LAN or online environments, I guess is what they use to play other teams in scrims and such throughout the, I guess, the locker rooms they've got. But I thought this is kind of a funny thing to look at, actually. And well, speaking of them, iLLeY made his appearance. He's looking fresh. And of course, the first thing everyone was looking at is, what's this guy's thumb looking like? Has he got the kind of strapping on his thumb anymore? I'll share the video if he goes on the full screen. Just listen out very carefully at the end of this video, because he says to Dashi, so, like, he either says, I'm feeling much better, he either says, I'm feeling a little bit better, or he just says, I'm feeling better, or something like that. But effectively implying that, yeah, his thumb is certainly on the mend, and I don't really see the strapping on it either.
We're here, locker room number 2, OpTic Gaming up in this place. What's up, man?
What's up, man?
You know the vibes. Look at this. Michael's up in here. He's got Daddy on.
I'm gone.
Got some goodie baskets. Little hockey stick. In case you need to purify yourselves. Got some showers back here. All right. Major 3, here we go.
Yo, you do look fresh.
You're like a new man.
So we have already had the confirmation from Rambo, I think it was just on stream a couple of days ago, that there's no way that iLLeY is playing this weekend. They don't want to risk it. They, well, definitely they think, well, seemingly he thinks it's improving and it's moving in the right direction. Of course, like there was the whole iLLeY playing in secret thing a couple of days ago that Rambo explained actually the doctor had given him kind of permission to do, and he was feeding back the information, how it felt and whether it was okay to the doctor and stuff. And this was actually what was going on at the Pro-Am Classic, right, when he had this kind of strapping on his thumb, and basically, well, during this weekend it's a bit of a disaster because he said, okay, I think I'm good enough enough to play, he stepped in and then had to step out after one series, which is very unfortunate. So Rambo said, look, we're not letting that happen again. This weekend, it's just going to be Pro Loot. That's how it's going to be. But ideally, iLLeY comes back from Major 4 qualifiers, and he's looking good. He seems like he's feeling better. So that's certainly a good sign, right? Because if he can't come back from the Major 4 qualifiers, then it definitely, well, raises the entire rest of the season in jeopardy, to be honest. And it also does depend how, OpTic do with Pro Loot this weekend. Because if they win the entire event without losing a map, then, maybe questions will be there being raised. They've made it very clear that iLLeY is returning, but it definitely creates a very interesting dynamic, right? Because, of course, what we saw with LG, with Spart coming through, although it didn't really work out for them in the long term, was another question entirely. Now, before we get into the matches, wanted to mention this real quick. Boston Breach, Zed is not going to be there at Major 3 due to some sort of visa issues. It's incredible how often this type of stuff affects CDL teams. But at Zed, of course, their head coach will not be able to be in attendance there, which is definitely not ideal, right? Because, yes, they're starting in the losers brackets, but I think they play the loser of Rokkr and Thieves in round 1, so possibly they have a rematch against Thieves. They didn't go so well, but not having your coach in attendance is going to be far from ideal. And people were wondering, of course, because Doug is there, I believe, as the substitute for the roster now, so potentially Doug steps in as kind of put Doug in as the coach, I suppose. So maybe he's their coach and their sub by designation, effectively. So that would be rather interesting to see Doug on stage, giving them some ideas. We'll see how that one goes. He actually was there in attendance, as you can see, with Tempe filming some sort of content in their hotel room, so all that was kind of funny. Looking forward to seeing this one come out, because Temp's been doing some good stuff on his YouTube channel lately, so definitely check that one out if you guys have not already. Now, Toronto do confirm yesterday that they do have a trophy for this event. Congratulations. Of course, we saw that the CDL don't seem to really like to actually put one up, and Minnesota decided, okay, we're going to do it ourselves for Major 2. They had the kind of shield thing going on, the Norse shield-esque thing. That was pretty cool. Now, I'm not sure really what Toronto are planning to do here. I'm pretty sure they're going to reveal it today sometime. You would imagine it's probably going to be on the middle of the stage. That is always pretty cool when that happens, especially before the grand finals and such. But I wonder what exactly idea they've come up with here. I'm pretty sure they took kind of feedback from the community on what they should do. So looking forward to seeing what their trophy actually looks like. And of course, well, a massive matchup today. I believe the first matchup of the day, as Picasso says, the Fat Man Chronicles continue. Fat Man versus Iceman, right? I mean, this is honestly just beautifully done. And it begins later on today. Later today than it will be for the rest of the weekends. I believe there's something going on locally. People have said there's either some event or there's some elections going on. That means that they've effectively started Thursday an hour and a half later than they usually would, which isn't great for us in Europe. But for the rest of the weekend, it's actually really, really good indeed, or much better than it usually is. So these are the times for today and tomorrow. Just to look at the differences, actually, that tomorrow starts 3 hours earlier than today does at 1:30 Eastern, which is an hour and a half earlier than it usually starts, which means that it doesn't end at stupid o'clock. And it's actually much better time zone, I think, on this Friday. Hopefully they continue with this kind of start times for the rest of the weekends when we go into other majors as well, because I think it makes a lot more sense for most of the time zones in the world. Of course, someone's always going to lose out, but these are the games of today. So it starts off with this. I mean, the first two games, I think, are probably the most exciting to me. I think the last two have maybe rather clear-cut winners. OpTic should beat Mutineers. Rokkr should beat Los Angeles Thieves. And, Mutineers are always a difficult team for OpTic, it seems sometimes, but I feel like right now, maybe with Pro Loot, it could be a different story. And Mutineers are probably, if there's any team you want in your first round matchup here, it's probably Florida. So I feel like OpTic should be able to overcome them. And Rokkr versus Los Angeles Thieves, Rokkr 3-0'd them when they played them at 4. Certainly Minnesota should be coming into this one with the fire, right? Because they would argue they've probably been rather disrespected by Thieves in the kind of throwing shenanigans that went down a little bit ago. But the first two series, I feel like, could have Game 5 written all over them, right? I'd be surprised if Surge versus New York doesn't go Game 5, to be honest. Both of these teams have been phenomenal in respawns this stage. And, well, in fairness, if you look at Seattle, who they've played, they haven't played quite as tough competition as the subliners have. Like, I mean, Seattle were 4-1 and New York were 3-2. But, of course, New York played OpTic and FaZe, and they beat OpTic, right? And that kind of makes me think that maybe I should favour subliners just about, because obviously Seattle have looked great, but against definitely weaker opposition than New York have. So I think I'm going to take New York in a Game 5 here, but I feel like this is almost as 50-50 as it comes. The respawns are so close down the middle. They're going to be absolutely, incredible respawn gameplay in this series, I'm sure of it. And it's going to come down to who can clutch them in their search and destroys. And, the Iceman might come into play there, but I feel like Crimsix might just have this team on another level, because, I mean, New York absolutely have to do incredibly well this tournament, and it starts right here. And the Ultra versus FaZe, the final series I'll mention, this is probably when FaZe were at their most vulnerable the entire season. Ultra had a really tough time against FaZe the last couple of years, but I feel like this year could be a different story. I honestly think this series still favours FaZe 55-60% likelihoods, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Game 5. I'm going to take FaZe to win a Game 5, but I'm looking forward to the day regardless. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button, tells the YouTube gods this is a good video, and I was like you should see it as well, and help grow the competitive quality community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for the prize picks, and I'll see you next time.